I'm Dr. Troy McMullen from the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa, and we're here in Resolute, and we're here to study the lichens and the plants of the high Arctic. So lichens are important up here for many reasons. One major one is soil stabilization. To prevent soil from blowing away, they'll grow on top like a crust and hold them in place. They're very important for nutrient exchange. Those with cyanobacteria can actually fix nitrogen, giving nitrogen to the soil, which is much needed up here. They're also very important for wildlife. They're a primary food source for caribou in the winter months. They are also camouflage, nesting material for birds, camouflage for insects. So they have a number of ecological functions. So lichens are a particularly important species up here because they're more sensitive than most of these species because of one special feature, and that is that they eat the air. They eat the moisture and the water that washes over them as well, which makes them particularly useful as bioindicators. They're really the canaries in the coal mine. They'll feel the effects of change earlier than some of the other organisms that are up here. So collecting them can be a challenge because a lot of the times they grow into the rock or on the rock so tightly that you can't remove them. In those cases, you have to bring a rock hammer and a chisel and chip off some of the rock to collect your specimen. Same with on the soil. They're usually so embedded in the soil that you have to collect a little bit of the soil to get the specimen. And we collect them, we store them in paper bags, we dry them, and put them in protective cases to transport back to the museum. And once at the museum, they're pressed and stored in acid-free packets in the herbarium in perpetuity.
I'm here in the lichen herbarium where we have over 150,000 collections of lichens, one of which was from the northern end of Ellesmere Island, right near the top of Canada, very close to the North Pole. We found a really interesting species there, which I've pulled out of the collection here, but it's quite small, so you have to look at it under a microscope. So Paul Sokoloff and I explored the high Arctic and we collected hundreds of lichens. And this was one of the more interesting ones. It's quite small. You really need to use a microscope to see it well. And a lot of lichens are. Lichens are actually a fungus that's discovered agriculture. It's farming a photosynthesizing partner, which is an algae or a cyanobacterium, or sometimes both. And these unique organisms are widespread in the Arctic. This one's really interesting because it's actually quite common in the southwest, in the deserts and in the prairies. And it made a huge jump over the boreal forest, over the Arctic, all the way to the very high Arctic. And so what it's telling us is that the conditions up there are very desert-like, and that it doesn't seem to matter that there's extreme cold. It's more the desert-like conditions that are able to be colonized by the species. The high Arctic is being affected by the climate crisis more than just about anywhere else in the world. And so the species that are there are going to be impacted by these changes significantly. So it's important that we record the biodiversity that's up there.